thing that we see in Africa, can we classify that to be child labor as well?
Yeah, because
globally, internationally,
yes,
what is child labor in Western part is the same as in Africa.
Yes, because when you look at it from that perspective of international law and the position of the United Nations, okay, so exposing the child to endangerment because of work, okay, sexual exploitation, human trafficking, exposing the child to hazards, that at the end of the day impede on that child's spiritual, mental, physical development, anything like that, okay. The only other thing is the value that is placed on education, because the moment that child is working, but it becomes so burdensome that it distracts the child from his or her development, especially school, it will be child labor. So that might be the only place where, because, I mean, here you have children, because of the situation they find themselves in, they go for apprenticeship so that they can learn, grow, and become whatever it is they want to become. But there's a lot of emphasis placed on education, at the end of the day.
Okay. At some point, I asked, what are some of the actions that we are, putting in place in Ghana? In your opinion, do you think the MWCA doing their best in curbing, child labor? I mean, specifically in Ghana, are they trying? Are they putting much effort?
Yes. So the first thing is to look at what their terms of reference would be as far as that responsibility is concerned, because they are not doing it alone. At some point I mentioned the police, DOFSU as well. Then you have these interest groups and advocacy groups that also try to get involved. Now, the reason I'm speaking of it from that perspective is that you also need to think about resource allocation. At the end of the day, they might want to do so much. They have a beautiful blueprint, but the implementation will cost money. It will cost agents. It will cost, being able to traverse the 16 regions of Ghana to be able to achieve it. And so some of the times, if you look at what they've been able to do within the resources they have, you would say that they are doing well. Oh. Okay, yes. So we...
Are you saying they are not getting enough funds?
Yeah, on the one hand, we don't even have enough funds for any sector of the society yet, with some of the crises that have happened all over the world and how we're trying to manage it as a country, it's not enough. So if you look at the scarcity of resources and what they have done so far, yes, it's worth applauding. And that is why it requires for all of us to get involved.
Okay. So based on what you're saying, are you saying we are not paying much attention when it comes to child labor?
Okay, so I mean, think about it.
We don't see that to be an urgent thing that we should, channel enough funds into, various organizations that will help, curb all these acts.
So it is urgent, but think about it. Are we going to sacrifice national security on the platter of child labor, for instance, or the National Health Insurance Scheme, or the free SHS? There are so many things that are crying after the attention of the government. And so you just have to do your best to allocate as much as possible to whatever project you have and hope that things get better. And that is why you also notice that the government keeps talking about the public-private partnership these days, so that you and I can get involved and see what we can commit, both in terms of human capital and, funding to make these things better. Okay, so the challenges are real. The challenges are real, and they might not have enough funding to do the things we expect them to do. Okay, so based on that, they deserve that applause. And then we also see how to raise more funds to make things better.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me give a scenario. Assuming a woman is unable to, cater for her child.
Yes.
Then another person comes in or walk in to take up that child. That's,
Yes.
I'm going to live with her.
Okay.
Before, the child was not enrolled in any school.
Sure.
So picking up that child, you take her home. Yeah. To be helping with, home chores and all that. Will you be responsible for maybe not giving the child access to education? And I want it in terms of, the law.
Yeah.
Is the one living with the child now be held responsible for not taking the child to school? Meanwhile, when the child was living with, her or, biological parent, feeding was even a problem.
Yeah.
So you coming in as a savior, or your job is not done by not taking the child to school. No, I want to get the understanding, because there are a lot of people living with others, children, helping them with house chores. So you say, oh, house help, this is my house help.
Yeah.
And mostly when they live with them, they don't go to school.
Yeah.
All they do is to, be in the house to assist me, take care of my kids. Then my kids will be in school.
Yeah.
How do we see that?
Let me start from the bottom. You see, if you would go out and do a bit of social experiments just by yourself, you will notice that a number of children, in spite of these terrible and harsh conditions that they find themselves under, are happy to remain where they are, because it is far better than where they are coming from. And these are the real victims that we should be paying attention to. They are exposed to very terrible experiences, but they are just happy to be there, considering where they are coming. Like you were saying, I have a shelter over my head. I eat. I have food to eat. So that I'm not going to school is not a big deal. You see the mentality of a poor little child, okay? But the mere fact that your action was gratuitous in taking that child into your house does not mean you don't owe that child a responsibility. So anybody that is taking a child, okay, albeit with the best intentions, you're giving food and you're giving shelter, make sure that you have counted the cost of having that child under your roof, because you're taking full responsibility for that child, including the schooling of the child. And so,
including the schooling?
Yes.
But you never negotiated with the parents that you'll be taking the child to school.
So it's not a function of what you negotiated for now. It's a function of what the rights of the child, are. They're fundamental human rights. And so whatever privilege your children are enjoying, the child must enjoy those privileges as well. So yes, you might decide to take your child to Akosombo International School, okay, or make sure the other child is going to school as well, okay. So the quality might not be, but give that child access to education. It's very, very important. You cannot treat that child any less than the children from your loins. It's not acceptable.
Okay.
Yes.
So now we've learned of how, indigenous institution fighting against child labor.
Yes.
Globally, do we have an action against that?
There are. Like I was telling you, with the United Nations and the international laws.
Even the US itself, this is going on.
Yes.
So how, powerful are these actions going to take place?
You see,
are we going to benefit out of that action?
Yeah, on the one hand.
When it comes to the implementation of the action, we use as quote unquote as a scapegoat to curb this. Whereas, deep down there, because from where I'm sitting, I see child labor to be more intense in our, setting. Not knowing in the Western
it's
side
far
is worse.
Yes.
So do you think all these implementation to, curb these child labor, we are ready to fight, and is it limited to us, or they are part of it?
Yes, there's a partnership. There is a partnership that is going on to make sure this is resolved. The sad thing about child labor again is that there's some deceit around it. Okay, so you see me with a child. Okay. 5-year-old child. You don't know I'm abusing the child until you see certain signs. Then you might come close to ask a question. But I might even ward you off in the guise that I am protecting the child. So I don't know if we have as many skilled people as possible, people that are able to detect that this child is being abused or that this child is being exposed to child labor and things like that. I mean, I don't know if you heard the story in the US of a man that kept his daughters hidden in the basement for close to 20 years, and they even had children for him. And I mean, not one story, not two, there are just so many. And some of the times, the first thing is your daughter. So people might not even immediately tell. So that's one of the biggest challenges. But the countries are partnering and doing their best to see that, issues of child labor, child sexual exploitation, human trafficking are curbed, or completely eradicated. It will be a tough war, okay? But I believe that if we take these partnerships, especially the international collaborations, more seriously, I think it's achievable.
What are some of the things should we look out for as an individual whenever we see a child moving with an adult? Now we've learned that when an adult is moving with a child, you can't tell whether the person is abusing their child.
Yeah.
What are some of the things should we, look at? What are some of the signs should we look out for so that at least it will be a hint or a wake-up call for us to notice that, no, this child is not in the rightful place, so we need to, act.
So let's start from our neighborhoods, okay? So you notice that this particular child, school time is 8 o'clock, but the child, you see the child getting ready and leaving for school at 10 or 10:30, and this thing is constant. Every other day you see the child, doing that, yes. But you also notice that if you're an early riser, you will notice that the child is up already at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Immediately it should tell you that there's something wrong, okay? You see a child walking down, but you see marks, on the child's body, on the child's face, on the child's arm, If it's a child that you know very well, you say, oh, chop knuckle, and the guy, and then, acts like, oh, I'm in pain. You need to try to find out, what has happened to this child. And you need to be, tactical about it. You don't just, knock on somebody's door and say, oh, this child is wounded. What did you do? It's confrontational. It immediately changes the dynamics. Okay, so you observe, and then you pay attention to how they follow whoever it is, they are going with, especially when within that area, in that space, okay, this should not be happening at this time. So we're driving to work. It's 9 a.m. and this child is selling water at 9. Okay, now I think we're approaching holiday period or a small vacation for the kids. That might be understandable. But at the time when they are supposed to go to school, be kind enough to wind down and ask the child, won't you go to school? Some of them have been taught by whoever it is that is abusing them to say, I'll go to afternoon school or to evening school.
Brainwashed.
Exactly. Of course, you can't say any different because you come back, there's a pounding waiting for you. So you ask them and see, because children will always be children. There's that innocence. So
if you probe, the truth will come out.
It will come out.
Okay.
We just need to be a bit more involved. And that will help a lot.
I remember in my primary school days, when I'm late for school, my teacher would just get hold of my hand. It would hold here. Even if I should, crumb my hand like this, it would just be hitting my nails with a, cane until I just open up. Then it would just give me about 8 lashes in my palm. Can we classify that to be child labor?
Oh, that's abusive. That is very abusive. And of course, that's one of the reasons you notice that I think the Ghana Education Service got to a point where they said, there are certain things you can't do to children in school any longer.
So now if you see teachers beating...
Like that. Yeah, that's extreme, yes. That's not punishment commensurate with the age of the child.
Okay.
That's abuse.
Back from the teachers, let's come home. In our various homes, an African woman or mother will send you go buy something. He said, I gave you 20 minutes. You are back in 15 minutes, to 50. And then we just put a fear of God in you by beating the hell out of you. What about that?
That is abuse.
Your parents.
That is abuse. Parents can abuse their children.
Abuse their children.
Yes, and it is wrong. The level of punishment must be commensurate to the age of the child. And the moment you go beyond that, you are abusing the child.
And sometimes you will be asked to plant maize. You put it on there and then you raise it, then you just be shaking. Oh, you know that.
Yes.
These are all abuse.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Once you take it beyond the point where it's supposed to be, of course, parents have this fear that I don't want my child to make the same mistakes that I made. And so I'm going to be tougher on my child, and make sure that he turns out to be a better man, a better woman. But while you are doing that, albeit with the best intentions, you must make sure that you do not abuse the child.
Talking about, the action that can be put in place. You mentioned all the orphanages and all that. These kids are out there, begging money, hawking and all that. Now you take them back to, the orphanages,
Yes.
they are not getting quick money as they were experiencing when they were on the streets.
Yes.
Don't you think there should be a proper education, there should be a proper, teachings that will curb whatever mindset they are having?
Absolutely.
That will let them be within it, because there are a lot of them, when you take them back to, their homes, they will just come back on the streets.
Yes, there are many cases like that.
Exactly. So with this, what can we do?
So you see, the approach to dealing with this has got to be holistic. It's not just about taking them out.
Diverse.
Yes.
Different approach.
Absolutely. So you don't just take them out of the streets. Okay. You try to rehabilitate them, change their mindset, provide that support for them. It's very important. So it's not just enough to give them shelter. If you give them shelter, like you said, some of them go back because they've seen money, they've tested money. Okay. Now all you're doing is just giving them some kose and cocoa for breakfast. When every day the boy is able to hold 50 Ghana cedis.
To buy whatever thing they want to
exactly. Buy. So you need to bring them to a point where they understand that this is in their best interest and help them. Some of them will make mistakes, so we don't give up on them. People that walk around children and work towards child development have got to be patient. They've got to learn emotional intelligence, and imagine if these were your children, how will you handle them? So
that's the key thing.
It's very important, very important. So guide them, help them to reorient more or less and become better people, so that whatever opportunities they see it as a great privilege and not run back to the streets.
Abusiafo ene enkomobo no de pa na ye brain ntimi se nche bia ye enkomobo no ebebe wi ya nesa ene lawyer Ogochukwu ena menene twetwe nkomo enra na International Child Labor Day na ene wamaya tiase se Ghana ye mremu no abofra ye kase obi ye classify ye child labor abofra wodi enfiensia eba dunsia eba form no below 16 years na oma no ye edwuma bia eboro abofra no so anase for instance bia emofra wo school wo be hia abofra no na bia oni obi nete ano ne maame nete na maame na hyehye pure water ebi wo ice cream ebi wo no ma chips na so no no otonwa eno child labor ebi no na anase bia enye se obekwa akoton ade kwampo na se bia woni abofra nete wo hwe 2 am wonya ne abofra no na make se bia ogina kitchen no wo horo niemum anase o prapra o clean o washe o yese late abra se abofra ne da no na sa time no de yes a enwuma no sa abofra ne engage ne ho e wo niema sa na child labor ne bia entimi bi se chese e kwa eni mo mi bi sa ne se na enye bia ye ko school aye ma be ye teacher for so ye say boye pa no se enu nti na Ghana Education Service e de sa ebre ba se me teacher ni ana so cheche ni nkuta ba emfa moro abofra sa enu kwa me child abuse wo ha abofra no enti ene mi bisa se abofra na woni ne te no onye wo benti e na wo de wo ba kugu school mu na wo de wo obiba no wo soma na enu ni nti no bia wo beka se wo kwa de wo ya abofra ne favor e ma mi bisa ye se me hwe bi abofra bi wona maame nchen aduane di mpo no maame mpo nya bi ma abofra na wadi ene obi abehu no so ana ba bi oda kwa mu nye nipa na befa na koten beboa me omifie me kasa abofra enya ba bi da onya aduane di onya atade papa bi hye nipa no hwe ne kama ne mmom onko school eno no so na wo say the fact say e wo tim se bi a wo ya abofra ne moa no nkire se wa ya menesi wo deprive abofra no from education. It is very important. Abofra be out the right to educate or his or herself. As I said, obating be making as a responsibility. So the abofra ebeku school. And yes, abofra beka to say me konkwa. Ejina sa wo ye maame. Na sa abofra nka so wonko school la. Eno dey put the fear of God in her. If the child resists not to go to school, as a parent, you need to put a fear of God in a child for the child to go to school. When you put a fear of God in that child, it's a child labor. Oh, what you why are you laughing?
In this fear of God that you're talking about.
Letting the child know the right thing.
Yes, definitely.
And you have put in a fear of God, it's beating the child. It's beating the child.
No, children deserve a certain level of discipline as well, you know, to guide them properly.
Okay.
Yeah, so if they are skipping school, if they're not doing the right thing, you know, they should be exposed to a certain level of punishment, as it were, yes, to make sure that they see the importance and get back to it.
Okay.
But before we do that, you know, we need to make sure that the child is yes.
The importance of the education.
Yes, that's one. Then two, there are children with mental health issues and psychological difficulties, which we are not paying attention to. For instance, attention deficit disorder, dyslexia, and things like that. But anytime they come home with a bad result, because you're not paying attention. Okay, you just say, this child is not doing well. You beat the child and all of that. There's a story of a child that was not doing so well in class. And the parents didn't know that all she needed was just a pair of glasses.
Oh, I think I've watched a movie like that.
You know, just a pair of glasses.
Wow.
And so the moment that was discovered, the child just started to improve. So we need to pay attention to all these things. And instead of getting confrontational, try to find out why. And then we'll be able to guide them properly.
Thank you so much, Ogochukwu. I would like to take, your final words in relation to, child labor, what parents should do, and our kids, what are we supposed to do?
I'd like to just encourage all of us, in Ghana and whichever country, where your program is being aired, to remember that we are Africans. And our all-time proverb that it takes a village to raise a child should come back into our system. We are all involved and we are all responsible for the children around us. We must do our best to make sure they get the best.
Okay, thank you so much for the education. I was for a Ogochukwu C in Wicked, a lawyer or a lecturer, or a ADR practitioner, and a name Chinkomo FA, a child labor, a Mr. Muma Yenya from dear, na yem from what ye may. Sabo Frane ye will bow, so when you will bow. So we will be dear, also dear, a ye. A bit me about was some background, I won't know. That should be unyana son for so cassette so be bar ubebo home modern na washane be crumble and then the entire ne life when yana was share no but o contribute o quota to ne success no and no kuano etime e de any JB ebre wonti mama yen so yenye ya famu die sa what one as wo abuse wo biba wo use wo biba a wo use no kwampa so a mesero by your head in shame na sesa efrisa suban no na Ghana intimi enye krabeshe Africa nyene ne wiase mu nyina intimi enye krabeshe ena menene nkomobo ye de esi midin de abena chei bo wache me na metene dwumadi mu edi mu chia me na asada kese